It's that time of the week. Yes, this week's Cult Movie Show, your weekly look at cult movies. Please welcome your hosts, Warren and Velvet.
Yes, welcome to another podcast of the Cult Movie Show with very loud air conditioning. And I am, of course, Warren, and with me, as always, is the amazing Velvet. How are you today, Velvet?
Oh, I'm any way the wind blows, as you can tell. Last week it was outside, now it's inside, so the wind just follows me everywhere on this show. But I'm doing quite fantastic, excited about our movies as always. I feel like I didn't get to go to the movies as much this week, and it was just one of those weeks where it seemed like I just didn't have the time, and I guess I didn't have the energy, because I actually saw one movie this week. It's supposed to be for kids, right? Because I had literally seen everything at that theater except for this one movie. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this movie called Show Dogs. And this has not happened to me in a very, 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 very long time. So I was just exhausted that day. Don't really know why. And I fell asleep many times during the movie. And every time I woke up, I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
It was just always dogs talking. And then there was a panda. And then there was a talking tiger. And I was just like, what is happening? And then a dog got molested by a human, fondling his balls. And he went to his happy place. And now this is very controversial in mainstream media, because the movie is giving the message to kids that, hey, if you're being molested, just let it happen, because adults aren't going to believe you if you tell them anyways. So obviously that was not the message that they meant to get across, yes. But that's basically what happens in the movie. It's a police dog who infiltrates a dog show because a panda has been kidnapped, and he's going to be auctioned off to like all these high-priced, black market exotic pet buyers. And so, he's a mean cop dog from the streets. So now he's at a show dog competition. He's a Rottweiler, and he has to get cleaned up for the competition. And they have a scene where they're waxing his anus, so it's nice and clean when the judge lifts his tail to examine him during the competition. And that's when he's like, oh, I just went to my happy place while that happened. And they actually have a whole sequence of just like a dream sequence of him seeing things that make him happy while the judge is perusing the dog's anus during the competition. And I was like, wow, okay, I was awake for that part, because I heard people talking about the controversy, and I was kind of like, I did think that was kind of strange that was in a kid's movie. But
yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, you can sort of say, all right, well, that's just realism. That's what happens in a dog show. Well, hang on, we don't send undercover dog cops to shows, and police dogs on police forces don't actually talk. So it's kind of fantasy anyway. So you maybe, I don't know.
I didn't see. Here's the thing I didn't understand about the movie. I couldn't tell if when dogs were talking, if humans could actually hear them or not.
Right.
Because the way the humans always interacted with the dogs after they talked, sometimes it would sync up, and it was like the human heard what the dog said and was responding to it, and they were like, yeah, this is a normal world in which dogs talk. They all speak English, evidently. Some of them have like French accents. It just depends on where in the world they're from, But then sometimes the dog would say something, and the human would respond in a way that made you think, okay, when the dog's talking, it actually just sounds like barking to the human. So it was unclear to me. I was like, wait, is this a world where humans understand dogs speaking or not? It was very poorly, I don't know. But I kept falling asleep during the movie, too. The movie actually wasn't boring. I just couldn't stay awake to that day. I kept falling asleep everywhere I was that day. It was just one of those days that if I was sitting still long enough, I kept falling asleep.
Well, was it a kid? Was it actually a kid's movie, or is it an adult?
That was supposed to be a kid's movie. This was because it was even I think it was PG-13, so it was definitely supposed to be for kids.
Okay.
The rating system was for 13 years old and up. But there was still that whole scene about, go to your happy place while you're being molested. Because I'm like, wait, what? I thought that was kind of weird. I'm like, wait, did that really just happen? I was like, somebody even said to me, well, you kept falling asleep during the movie. Are you sure you didn't dream that part? And I'm like, no, it actually happened. And then I heard people talking about on like the radio and some other podcasts that were reviewing movies. And I'm like, oh, see, it did happen. It wasn't just me, falling in and out of consciousness. It did happen. I saw it. But yeah, strange movie. Show dogs. So
Show Dogs.
Yeah, beware the controversy.
Okay, all right. Well, that's one to watch out for.
And it had our girl in it. Natasha Lyonne, the one from the slums of Beverly Hills. She was She was an FBI / undercover FBI / dog trainer type thing in the movie, and I'm like, she's in this. Okay, well that's good. That's good. But yeah, I don't know if I like that movie or not because I kept falling asleep and I don't really know what happened.
Well, I have seen that, that other movie that I know you couldn't stand, the one about the police, in the fantasy world, with orcs and fairies and...
Bright. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Bright with Will Smith.
I see that's now... Well, no, I haven't seen it. I've stayed away from it, actually, but I've seen it's now readily available on Netflix, so...
Yeah. I can't... Oh, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do it then, because it's definitely on Netflix over here. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do that one.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to watch it and see how we go. I don't know.
If you can make it through it, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I tried twice, and I was just like, I can't do it. Did it like twice in like 20-minute increments, and I'm like, that's it. I can't take it anymore. Can't do it.
Well, I did see a movie actually, so I can actually say also a reasonably recent one. And that is an Australian film, actually, called Swinging Safari. And
I want to see that.
Yeah, if you get a chance to see it, it is absolutely hilarious. If you remember the 70s or have ever been told anything about the 70s, and especially, too, if you're an Australian, because there are a lot of Australian references in it, but just absolutely hilarious. And when I was watching it, it was almost like being in a time capsule. I could, because it's all set on an Australian surf beach, over a summer in the 1970s, and it is just absolutely hilarious to watch. And the references, I mean, I'm not too sure who wrote it, but all I can say is it's just 100% spot on. It's so accurate. So if you get a chance to see it, you will laugh your ass off. It is so funny. Absolutely so funny. Even though it's got a bit of a message to it as well, but it's absolutely hilarious. So I recommend that one if you can track it down.
Just the cast list alone makes me want to see it. You've got Guy Pearce, you've got Kylie Minogue, you've got Julie McMahon. I mean, those three people right there make me want to see it. So I'm looking online now to see if there's anywhere I can see it yet, but no, it's not over here. It's not online legally yet, so I'll keep my eyes open for it.
Also, Kylie Minogue is hilarious in it because she plays like that 70s alcoholic mother. With all the kids, but because all she does is just sit in the house and just drink vodka all day, and there's a bit in the film which it's not the main part of the story, but it is very important to the story. It's when the adults decide that they're going to have a swingers night. Okay.
No.
And Kylie Minogue in it, just her facial expressions while things are going on. It makes the scene. Like, her facial expressions alone are just so funny, so hilarious. Great little film, actually. Great little film. But that's about all I can report of new movies that I have actually seen.
Good stuff. All right, now we got a movie that's not so new, but it's new to me because this is my first time seeing it. I have vaguely heard of it, but never seen it before.
And you'll probably never want to see it again.
Not really.
We are going for our first movie for the American classic, cult classic, I think we have to say, from
Definitely.
1978, Starcrash, starring the Hoff. Yes, the Hoff himself is one of the stars of this movie. So too is Christopher Plummer. How the hell they got Christopher Plummer into this, I have absolutely no idea. But they did. We'll talk about his role
Definitely.
in just a moment. So, anyway, what is Starcrash? Well, I've watched the movie and I still don't actually know what Starcrash really is, but I will give you a quick rundown of the actual film. Now, it was made obviously clearly as a rip-off, try to cash in for a few dollars off the Star Wars craze. But didn't, of course, have anywhere near the budget, you say. It's been described actually not so much as science fiction, but more science fantasy is probably a better way to say it. A bit like, like Flash Gordon and sort of, I mean, that's about the closest thing I can think of actually to try to sort of compare it to.
Or Sinbad in space.
Yes. I think that would be more realistic than trying to compare it to Star Wars. Now, anyway, in a distant galaxy far, far away, basically we have two of our main heroes, and that is Stellar Star and Actron. And Stellar Star is a human. She's meant to be the best astro pilot navigator, basically, in the entire universe. And she has her offsider, Atron. And looks human, but he's not human. He's some sort of person with very, very interesting powers. He can create things. Well, let's face it, he can basically do magic. I mean, he's just, all right. And they are being hunted down across the galaxy they're being hunted down. And anyway, they're finally caught and they're put into prison. But, of course, they will soon escape from prison. And when they do escape, they are hunted down by the Emperor, who, of course, is Christopher Plummer, the Emperor of the universe. And it turns out that the universe is apparently split into two camps, the good and the bad. And, of course, the Emperor represents the good, and he hires our two heroes to try to track down the source of the evilness and at the same time see if they can rescue or find his lost son, the Prince, and of course, which is Prince Simon. And Prince Simon is, of course, played by David Hasselhoff. But, of course, the Hoff won't actually appear until about 2/3 of the way into the movie.
Yes,
I mean, it's a
yes.
fair time until we actually get to see him. So basically, our heroes will go flying across the galaxy, go into hyperspace. They will fly in a spaceship that honestly looks like it was designed in 1976 by some people who were smoking and drinking far too much at the time. I swear it had everything but a lava lamp in the actual cockpit of the spaceship. They will land on various different planets and meet various different people. They will meet a tribe of Amazon women. They will get caught on an ice planet. We will see whole heaps of different magic, that will occur. We even have a fucking lightsaber appear in this movie. That's how much of a rip-off this is. Until they finally track down the evil planet, and they will be betrayed on the way, but that's okay. They'll deal with all that. And then there will be the ultimate showdown, which doesn't quite go to plan, and the evil guys win. So they have to then undertake the only plan left that the Emperor, Christopher Plummer, can think of, and that is to release the Starcrash. Because this is the Starcrash is the ultimate weapon. Well, the ultimate weapon is basically flying one spaceship into another. That's it. That's it. And our movie is then over. What did you think of this amazing piece of cinematic history, Velvet?
I had no idea what was going on the entire movie. I was so confused. And, we did something with this movie that we should actually do more often. We did not watch the regular version of Starcrash. We enlisted the help of those lovely people over at Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes.
we watched the version of this film where they did commentary during one of their episodes. I believe season 1, episode 6, of The Return. So if you have Netflix, yes, if you have Netflix, feel free to check this one out. Definitely makes it more entertaining. They understood about as much of it as we did, I think.
Yes.
Super cheesy effects. Very, very cheesy effects. Wow. Christmas lights everywhere, just colorful little lights everywhere that I guess make people lose their mind, and they start holding their ears and holding their heads and screaming, and they're like, oh my God, it's the most powerful weapon ever. And I'm like, what is going on? There was claymation. There was a stop motion animation in this movie, which I really actually enjoyed seeing, but unfortunately it was very low rent claymation. It's like it didn't have that smooth movement. You get so spoiled by Ray Harryhausen's stop motion animation that anything else is just not as good. So there's that clunky, slow movement, and you're like, hey, that skipped a few frames. And but yeah, 2 minutes in, and I had no idea what was going on. Towards the end of the movie, I still had no idea what was going on. But I was actually still really entertained because I was like, oh God, what's going to happen next? Because the visuals were just so cheesy, so cheap, but so entertaining.
It is, I mean, the special effects are appalling. I mean, they really are so bad. The Star Wars ripoffs, as I said, the space battles look exactly, like they do in Star Wars. They're just a cheaper version. We have a lightsaber battle, straight out of Star Wars. But in saying that, it is a, kind of a very different sort of story. The other interesting thing too is that Stella Star, basically our star of the movie, played by, Carolyn Munro, I'm just not too sure. There obviously wasn't a clothing budget set aside for Carolyn, because she wears as little as humanly possible. She basically, for 90% of this movie, is wearing a bikini.
Basically.
But not joking.
God.
I mean, 90% of this movie, she is in a bikini. It is so sexualized. And now, in saying that, she looks absolutely beautiful. She looks gorgeous.
Yes.
But
yes, she does.
Was it really necessary? I ask.
The whole space fashion in this movie is hilarious. Any women that are in this movie are always scantily clad, and then everything the men wear is always overly complex and ridiculous. It looks like it's hot as hell. They were probably sweating their balls off because they got capes and they got long sleeves and they got gloves and they got boots. But then the girls are always like two-piece whatever.
Yes.
Two-piece whatever, super short, super tight. But I was really entertained by the outfits because you just never knew what people were going to come out wearing. It was just always ridiculous. And so, like, this is the fashion of the future. Can't you tell we're in space? Because why would you just wear jeans and a t-shirt in space when you can wear overly complex pleather-looking outfits?
Well, it's very 70s, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that idea. I mean, I think even Jerry Seinfeld, with the writing, I've forgotten his name now, but in Seinfeld anyway, they even bring up the point that in 1970s sci-fi, have you ever noticed that it's like there seems to be a uniform that everybody wears? Like, their concept in the 70s of the future is that everyone would always be dressed identically. Like, everyone would have just one outfit, and it would just be, will it be silver today or will it be red? But it's the same outfit, you know? And it is so true. When you look at 1970s science fiction, everybody is, and in this is the same. The men are all just wearing these, like, what do you call them? Like bodysuits, I suppose you would say. And the women are basically all wearing bikinis. It's just basically that's how you're going to dress in the future. Unless, of course, you're the emperor. And then, of course, you're going to have this huge fucking cape and collars and God only knows what. You know.
Yeah, there's even a scene where one of the bad guys has that massive cape that, like, it flows like out 6 feet, like sideways and vertical. Like, it's just humongous when he's walking. So it really makes a grand entrance when he's walking around. And the Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys are like, the bottom of his cape must be filthy, because it was just like so huge and dragging all over the ground. Wow.
Yes, I know.
But, yeah, the outfits in this movie are amazing. I mean, that right there is a point. that right there just earns an Eric Roberts point right there, just with the outfits in this movie, because they're so either ridiculously over the top or almost non-existent.
Yes,
there's like no happy medium.
I know. It's one or the other, isn't it? They're either so extravagant or they're only sort of like, it's like they're either microscopic or they're just way over the top. There's nothing in between. I know. The next, one other character we should talk about is the robot, who is meant to be a police bot, basically. This police bot or police robot is, of course, basically given to Stella and Atron by the Emperor to assist them in trying to, you know, track down the hub of evil of, what was it? It's Count Zarth, isn't it? I think Count Zarth.
The names in this movie are amazing too.
And so they're given this robot, and they're also given the assistance of a man called Thor, who is a gentleman all painted green.
He has a green head, but the rest of his like neck and the rest of his body is like normal human skin flesh color.
I know. They ran out of paint, I gather. I don't know. He will, of course, end up betraying them, but of course the police robot will not do that. He will stay loyal to Stella throughout the entire movie. What did you think of the robot? Because he's interesting. I mean, apart from the costume, which was a kind of interesting robotic costume, I didn't think it was too bad.
It was definitely obviously a person in a suit.
Yes.
But I did like the overall appearance of the robot. But that accent, though, that was the best part. I could not place the accent. I'm like, he doesn't quite have a southern accent, but it was kind of like one of those hillbilly accents, and he's just like, well, I don't know, Stella. We'll have to take a look and see what we can do here.
I know.
And I was like, at first, we were watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, so I thought the guys were doing a voice. But now I was like, oh, no, wait, that's the way the robot actually talks. Yes. The entire movie. He always has this crazy, like, backwoods accent. I'm like, what the fuck?
To me, it almost came across like if you asked a Frenchman to do an American accent as a robot in a science fiction movie, and this is maybe what you would get. You know, it wasn't Like, it was, I mean, look, in saying that, everyone's got a different accent, everyone sounds different. But,
right.
but generally speaking, robots have a
programmable voice.
Or a generic voice.
Programmable, generic speech pattern. They don't have regional accents.
But not this one. This one sounded like he just finished eating his crawfish off the bayou, which was fun. But I thought it was funny. I mean, I don't know whether they did it intentionally.
I don't know. I couldn't figure that out. It just came out of nowhere because everybody else in the film had a pretty standard English, pronunciation of words, standard American, mostly sounding English. So there wasn't any, out of really unusual accents. Then all of a sudden this robot's just like, Stella, I will help you. I can keep you alive. And I'm like,
I know.
What? Where'd that come from?
Well, for an American movie, too, the robot was the most American-sounding character in the entire film.
Yes, he was.
but it maybe does have a lot to do with the fact that half the cast... or most of the cast are not American, at all. Or if they do, they definitely didn't sound American.
No, because it was like an American-Italian production, so a lot of the voices had to be dubbed. David Hasselhoff and a couple of the other stars were able to come back and obviously, dub their own voice, obviously, into English, but, I'm wondering if that robot may have been dubbed by an American, and they were just like, yeah, do some kind of funky voice with them, and they just, didn't double-check it or didn't give a fuck. I don't know. And this guy just went all out with an accent. I'm not sure.
Well, I have seen this before, especially in some Japanese movies that get dubbed, where they've only got, let's say they take an old Japanese movie from the 1960s, all right? And they've got to dub it. So the company that they get to dub it, right, they've got a cast of maybe 6 people or 7 people, and they have to do the voice for everybody in the movie, right? So what you'll often find is, you'll get one person actually doing 20 different voices in the film.
God.
But the beauty of that is they have to keep changing voices all the time. So sometimes some of the voices come out sounding totally inappropriate. I mean, I remember seeing one Japanese movie in the English dub, and the professor, meant to be the smartest man in the world, who's been hired by the Japanese government, to find out what's going on. This man he's the Stephen Hawking of his time, right?
Okay.
So this guy comes out and he's going, oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. And it's like, are you for real? This is the voice you chose to be the smartest man in the world. He sounds, like a hit. With not even a high school education, and this is the voice you chose. I know.
Well, the overall line delivery in this movie anyways was weird because our main lady, Stella, almost every line she delivered in the movie, she was either smiling inappropriately, over enthusiastic, like, oh my God, we're going to die.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what? And, you shouldn't be happy about that. And, the entire movie, just a lot of people were over dramatic, overacting, which I can always understand in these kind of movies because they don't know what the movie's going to look like, and the director's telling them, well, hey, there's a giant robot, or hey, there's this monster, or hey, this guy's going to kill you with his laser gun. So they're always trying to act against the background that they're not seeing. So they always overcompensate a lot of times. But her line delivery especially, though, was really weird because she was always over-enthusiastic, smiling inappropriately, just always really high-pitched and excited. And I'm like, that looks weird. Why are you smiling now? No. What are you doing? So
yes, it's and then of course it must lead us on then to 2 of our other characters who are probably the 2 most, or probably the 2 best known anyway to audiences today, I suppose you might say, and that is of course Christopher Plummer and David Hasselhoff. Both men not quite in the same league, shall we say.
Definitely.
But what did you think of the 2 of them?
Well, first off, Christopher Plummer, there's so much great info about this. So first off, it's conflicting info. As we both agree, his caliber of acting is pretty above the standard of this type of film, so we're surprised he's even in it. Supposedly, he was paid $10,000 a day for his performance, and this is in 1978.
Right.
However, now I'm also reading they're claiming that he did all his scenes in one day. So it's like, wait, what? So wait, could they only get him for one day, or did he actually have multiple days and he earned $10,000 per day? So not sure. So they knew they had a gem on his hands, but it didn't sound like they were able to keep him there for very long. So, but even for how silly and cheesy and cheap and nonsensical this movie is, his performances always commanded a lot of attention. He just has that great delivery. No matter how ridiculous his lines were, talking about we have to unleash the Starcrash. You know, like even he was able to deliver these stupid lines with the utmost professionalism and skill. And he really added a nice, solid foundation to this film when you just think it's ridiculously amazingly bad, but entertaining. He just adds a little bit of star credibility to it with his actual acting ability. So if you're a Christopher Plummer fan, you've never seen this movie, you definitely want to check it out just to see him as the Emperor, because I just don't think of space movies when I think of him, but he actually fit into this movie very well. And he just brought this level of professionalism with him.
Well, he's such an interesting guy, Christopher Plummer, isn't he? Because it's like he's Shakespearean trained. You know, he's a Canadian who actually sounds more British than he does Canadian. He's he's a very, very interesting character. And one thing I will say about his performance in Starcrash is that he sounds like he's doing Shakespeare. Like the way he actually delivers his lines is so out of character with everybody else in the movie. And sometimes I just wondered if it was a little bit like Christopher Plummer just walked on set and it's like, I'm going to show you people how to act. I don't know, but, you know.
That's exactly what it looks like, too. It's like, okay, everybody take notes while he's performing because we only get him for one day, and this is going to be a very valuable learning experience for everyone.
Yes.
He was, I really liked him in this. And, oh, my God, David Hasselhoff is so young and so pretty in this movie. He's so cute. I mean, literally, he's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very cute. Oh, my God, just looks so fresh. Wow. Evidently, he got really bad food poisoning on the set of this movie and still had to work. But there are scenes that were replaced by somebody else while he was sick. So there's a scene where he's running around with a gold helmet on his head. That's most likely his replacement while he was
right?
Yeah. While he was sick with food poisoning, but he got it together for his close-ups.
Right. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
And he did actually do his stunts in this movie. So action has always been in his blood on a very cheap movie level.
Well, I was about to say cheap action. You know, he did his own swimming in Baywatch. You know.
But it was fun to see him in this. But yeah, I was surprised that I guess you could say star power for this film, David Hasselhoff and Christopher Plummer, both different levels of stardom. So it's interesting to see them come together in this movie. And actually, I think they made it work. I think it was good chemistry because Christopher Plummer was supposed to be David Hasselhoff's father. And for half a second, I could believe there's some affection there between them.
But actually, when you see them side by side, actually, they can't. You actually look at them and go, "Yeah, I can see it. You could be father and son."
Right, totally.
I know that sounds crazy. You know, it's like Christopher Plummer, but maybe it's because they were so much younger then. I mean, this is 1978.
Right.
But they kind of did look similar. The other thing, too, that's interesting about David Hasselhoff's delivery of his lines is that it's different to a lot of the other stuff I've seen David Hasselhoff do. He almost he classes up his speech. It's almost like they're sort of saying, no, David, you're meant to be a prince. You need to sound regal, and he actually does change the way he speaks. It's not the way you would remember David Hasselhoff from Knight Rider or from you know or Baywatch, sort of thing.
Right.
He does it, and he's not bad. He's not bad. Although I do think David Hasselhoff is, how do I politely say, overacting a little bit.
Like most people in this movie.
Yes.
Like most people in this movie.
Yeah,
Christopher Plummer was the only one I feel like nailed it, which is funny because you would think somebody who's classically trained and, as you also said, came across with a very classical performance style. Somehow it just worked for this movie. It seemed to balance it out with all the over the top acting, all the ridiculously excited exertions of speech, but then Christopher Plummer is always very understated and calm with his delivery. There was no rush.
No, it was almost as if he sort of said, "Oh, sorry, I thought I was booked for Hamlet." You know, this is Starcrash, is it? Oh, okay. Well,
I thought you said The Fault in Our Stars. I don't know.
No, yes.
I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah,
but it's it is. The performances are definitely interesting, and we almost as well get a little bit of I don't know. Do you think they were trying to do a bit of that love triangle between Stellar Star Atron and Prince Simon in the same way as the first Star Wars, until the story gets out that Luke and Leia are actually brother and sister, that we actually have that, we actually have that love triangle that was developing between, Han, Luke, and Princess Leia. Do you think they were trying to copy that in this?
If they were trying to do that in this, it was very, very poorly executed. I didn't get the whole love triangle vibe, but I felt there was affection between Stella and Acton. However, I felt it was more platonic and just respects for each other as shipmates. Interesting note about the Acton character. Okay, I was so confused when he started deflecting laser fire, they're shooting lasers at him and it's just going through him, and then he sticks up his hand and it bounces off his hand and it shoots back at the people and kills them, and I'm like, wait, how is he doing that? And it took me forever to realize that he was supposed to be an alien because he looks just like a regular human, and I'm like, oh. So evidently the Acton character originally was supposed to be a grotesque alien, but he refused to wear any kind of heavy makeup for the movie. So they're like, okay, fuck it. Okay, he doesn't want to do it. He's just going to look like a normal human that has superpowers. And I was like, oh, damn, dude. So, he should have went full on grotesque alien. I love it when people go full on grotesque alien.
Yeah, I know.
When you come to like them and you you like him as a character, and then you're sad when you lose him. It adds that just layer of depth to the storytelling when you find that you care about a character that's non-human. But with this guy, I was just kind of like, I don't really care because you're just another dude that's dying in this movie. So,
but here's the other thing too: is that if he's from a species that have all these superpowers, right? Why did the Emperor just form an army? If these people live in the Emperor's, universe, why doesn't he just go and form a special regiment of these guys? And they could be like the Green Berets or the SAS of the Emperor, and they could do whatever he wants. Why does he need to go? I don't know. Anyway,
seriously, now looking for logic in this movie is not the way to go about it. No. But one thing. Go on. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I just had a quick question because I keep forgetting, and this happened right at the beginning. So Stella and Acton, I guess, are some kind of smugglers or space pirates kind of thing. What are they smuggling?
I don't think we ever find out.
Okay, I did not understand that. I was like, you can't just call people smugglers because that could go. There's so many sides to that story because they could be smuggling something for the benefit of other people. Like they could be smuggling medicine for underserved regions that need it, or are they smuggling, stuff that they straight up stole from people to sell for profit? So I hated that they were like, oh, they're smugglers, and then they get caught, and they're supposed to be they get sent to like prisons for hard labor, and I'm like, wait, what were they smuggling? Okay, we never found out. Okay, I thought maybe I missed it. Okay.
No, I think it was just, once again, it was just a Star Wars ripoff. In like, basically, you know, like Han Solo and Chewbacca are smugglers, right? Who were then employed by Luke and Obi-Wan, and they end up joining the rebellion, right? I think it's kind of just the same thing. It's like, oh, they probably said, oh, well, let's see, Han Solo and was a smuggler, so let's make them smugglers. Yeah, it worked in that movie, you know. I think it's that simple. It's like, what could we rip off from another movie? Because that way it's easier. We don't have to write quite so much or think quite so much. We'll just rip it off from another movie. I would honestly describe this in a sense as it's Flash Gordon meets Star Wars. You know, but the other thing too is, of course, filmed in 1978, so it is the era of the perm. And God, do we have some perms? You know.
Oh no! Ew!
I mean,
and just ew. Sorry to anybody who still wears a perm, but ew.
Well, no. I've got nothing against permed hair. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, 1978. It was like, yes, it was like the birth of, you know, big shoulder pads and stuff. It was like the perm, you know, and they all have the most magnificent perms.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
with the exception
David Hasselhoff.
Oh, David Hasselhoff, yeah.
That was the perm everybody wanted to go for. The perfect, like, loose curls that are billowy, not quite an afro, but not so tightly permed that he looks like a doll. He had that good mix. He had the beauty standard of permed hair in this movie.
What about Actron though? I mean, he's more.
No, his was too tightly curled. It looked too much like a clown wig.
Well, that's the thing.
Too silly.
He was more perm than he was man. He was just a walking hairpiece. You know, I mean, it was. I mean, all he was basically a giant blonde perm with a pair of legs.
Okay. Confession. I didn't want to admit it, but for half the movie, I thought that was David Hasselhoff. I was like, did he get a nose job? Did he get a lot of work done? Like, because I knew this was like the movie from 1978, so I was like. Then finally he shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, that's David Hasselhoff. Okay, now I recognize him. I was like, until he showed up, I thought acting was David Hasselhoff.
Yeah. Oh my God!
And it was because of that hair, actually, because I was like, well, that's got to be David Hasselhoff, right? That's him, right? And I was like, well, he looks so different now, and I don't know. No, anyways, yeah. When he finds, confession. Every once in a while, you think for half a movie that an actor is a different actor until the actual actor shows up, and you're like, oh, whoops, okay, got it.
Yes, it's but it was interesting. Yes, I mean, if you want to watch this as a David Hasselhoff film, you're going to be disappointed, as we said, because it is a supporting role. It is not the lead role.
Although he gets like top billing because like his name is like the first name, so that's why I was confused. I was like, it didn't say with David Hasselhoff or and David Hasselhoff, so I thought, oh, top billing, he's going to be through this whole motherfucker.
I wonder if the titles have changed over the years as shall we say the rise and fall of actors' status, you know.
That could be.
I mean, what is it, you know, like you'll often hear people talk about, what is it, not Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, I think it's Return of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, whatever. and it's billed as George Clooney, but it's not. I know there's another film that does the rounds, which was some cheap sort of sets film made in the late 70s or something like that, and it's often billed as starring Ron Howard, but Ron Howard's only in it for about 10 minutes. No, when I say cheap sets film, I'm talking like a like a Porky's or, up
exactly.
the Khyber
Exactly.
or something. Yeah, I don't mean, what do they call them? Teen sets comedies, sort of like
Exactly.
American Pie. There's a classic example, like American Pie sort of thing, yeah. So maybe they changed. Maybe when it was originally released, the titles looked a bit different. I really don't know. And I'm not honestly going to bother to do that much research to find out is the truth. Cost $4 million. Runs for an hour and a half. I think it's about an hour and a half. It's $4 million is about all it's worth. I mean, as we said, there's. The sets are pretty bad. They really are. And it is such a 1970s concept of what the future would look like. In fact, what it reminded me of, actually, quite a bit, is I mentioned Flash Gordon before, but have you ever seen I think it's readily available now, actually, on YouTube, or you can buy it. It's probably on iTunes, might even be on Netflix. There was the late 70s TV show Buck Rogers.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you've seen it, but...
I've never seen it, but I know of it.
it sort of reminded me a bit of that, where just everyone's in their jumpsuits, everyone's like... And the other thing, too, it's a little bit like in Buck Rogers, the only music that's played in the future is disco. Right.
Of course.
That's it. Classical music, jazz, rock, all this sort of stuff. It's all disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore. There's only disco music, Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, we almost forgot to mention the amazing creatures that we see in this movie. So at one point,
yes.
They're looking for Prince Simon, who is our David Hasselhoff. They're looking for Prince Simon on this planet that I guess it's like Amazon-type women. Not really, but it's just a clan of women. And they're riding these red, like, alien horses. Yes, the red horses, poor horses. They probably, like, spray paint them red. And they put, like, these weird, like, I guess kind of like masks on them, but it looks like their actual head. And they have, like, 10 nostrils. They have like 5 nostrils on each side. It just lines their nose. And you only see it for a split second. So I had to find like a screenshot of that part of the movie. And so I could go look at them. I'm like, wait, what were those? Yeah, they were like red, strange 10-nostriled horses. And then, of course, we had a couple of a giant robot. That was stop motion animation. It was like this giant claymation robot with breasts. I honestly thought it was going to shoot lasers out of its tits.
I thought it was too, yeah.
It just had that look to it. Like, the nipples had these holes, and I'm just, like, waiting for the lasers to come out.
I know.
Never happened, I'm sad to say. I was disappointed by that. But I did still like that scene. The claymation, unfortunately, was very chunky. As we said, it was not Ray Harryhausen style, but the overall look was interesting. Didn't really make any sense why this woman was able to control a giant robot with her mind to seek revenge, and they just, acting like shoots it with a laser or something and it goes down, and I'm like, what's going on?
You'd also have to ask yourself, I mean, it's like, hang on, so one of the planets is a planet of Amazon women, and they ride horses for transport, but they have the technology to make a 300-meter tall mechanical robot that they can control somehow psychically. It's like, okay, yeah.
And then there were space Neanderthals, like troglodytes is what they called them at one point. And that was, oh my God, those were so grotesque looking, but that was one of my favorite scenes because that shit just cracked me up because they just kept having them jump out of nowhere. Like literally just like, I guess they had them like run and jump off of like a trampoline off
Yes.
screen so that they could just like literally just jump into the scene. And they looked so hideous. They looked like fucking trolls. They had this crazy prosthetic makeup on, and they had like the dirty rotten teeth and the long caveman hair, and and there's a scene where Our Lady, Stella, gets kidnapped by these fucking space Neanderthals, and they have her in that stereotypical, they have her tied to a piece of metal so that she's upside down, arms and legs up in the air, and they're carrying her. And I was like, really? They couldn't do that any better? Because this poor woman's face is right in this dude's ass.
I know. I noticed that. That was hilarious.
She must have been so miserable. And I was like, seriously, he could move forward a little bit. You know, you could tell she was struggling to like move her face to keep it from bumping right in this dude's ass while they were carrying her away. But
that was I couldn't believe that. It's like, Jesus, I just push her back a little bit or step forward a little bit. For God's sake. I know.
But yeah, just lots of crazy, strange alien. Oh, there was some weird alien. I don't even know what that was. There was a scene towards the beginning of the movie where there was a bubble, and there was like this deformed green / partially human, partially alien head with like tubes and bulbous forehead, and I don't know what the hell it was. And I was like, wait, who's this? And we never see him again. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened.
I don't know. I don't know. I got no idea. I got nothing.
There's so many weird things in this movie that I was just like, I have no idea what's going on.
No. And the other thing too is we said the special effects are so bad. The spaceships from the outside are they're kind of built all right. The model making is kind of in a fantasy world, you know, it's kind of
fantasy world.
Yeah, it's kind of okay. But the problem is
they're so convoluted. They're so convoluted looking.
Oh yeah, I know, but the biggest problem they have is they just can't make them look like they're in space. That's the, it's a bit like when people fly and you can see the wires. You know, it was pretty, you know, sort of, it was pretty bad, you know, in that sense. But I have to admit, for all of the crap of this movie and how bad it is and stuff like that, you know, I kind of enjoyed it.
I was actually entertained. I was actually entertained by how bad it was. I wanted to say really quick, the star crash. Like, they even try to explain it for half a second, what a star crash is. It's a fourth dimensional attack. That's all I've got.
But all they do is fly one spaceship into another. That's it. I mean, how the hell? You know,
the fourth dimension. I don't know.
An attack from the fourth dimension. Okay, so from my understanding of the way dimensions are meant to work and be described, we have 3 dimensions. All right. And then people generally often refer to as the fourth dimension as time. But then there's also now, of course, scientific talk that there's also a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, an 8th, a 9th. There's infinite numbers of dimensions, right? Okay. However, how is the fourth dimension flying one spaceship into another?
I didn't catch that. I was like, what's happening?
Do you know how a better description I have than the fourth dimension?
What?
Ramming. They just rammed each other. That's it.
Oh my goodness. And there was, right before they did that, they had to like abandon ship. So he had Stella and her robot Ella, or Elle. Yeah, Elle. That was annoying too. We had Stella and Elle. Elle was the name of the robot. And I'm like, that name is just too similar sounding. Anyways. But they had to abandon ship before the ship made contact with the other ship, I guess. And they literally just all of a sudden jumped out of a window into space. And it just made me laugh. I'm like, wait, what?
They did. They simply just opened up the window of the spaceship, you know, like as you do.
Yeah, they didn't get sucked out or anything. Like we always see in movies nowadays. They just open up the window and they're like, okay, let's go.
And they literally jump out and then they're swinging on wires. And and then they get picked up by
they're floating around in space, and they're like, we're over here, and they like come get picked up like they're hailing a taxi, except for it's a spaceship.
I know.
Like, wait, what?
I know.
Oh, we forgot to mention. Okay, we've talked about the space fashion, but we did forget to mention the actual, space suits, like what we would say, like astronaut suits now, like space suits. Those were Those were wild looking. Those were amazing. You just have to see it for yourselves, people. I just can't even describe how amazing. The helmets are big enough to compensate for your permed hair, so you don't get helmet head.
Yes.
When you remove. It was just amazing.
It's what can we say? Well, I should just say one last thing, Nessie, I suppose, before we wrap up our first film. We've been talking about it from a while. I think we enjoyed this one, Velvet. To keep talking like this, but there was a sequel, Velvet. There was a sequel called Starcrash 2, made in 1981. However, it's not exactly a sequel. It's an Italian film which was called Escape from Galaxy 3. And for some unknown reason, it was marketed in the United States as Starcrash 2. So,
how funny.
So how bad does a film need to be that you would want to directly link yourself to the abomination, which is Starcrash, right? So it makes you wonder, how bad is Escape from Galaxy 3? Well, I'm going to find out, because I'm determined to watch that movie now, Starcrash 2, Escape from Galaxy 3, because it must be appalling. If you want to find a shocking film and think that film is better than yours that you're releasing, so you're going to rename it, my God, it must be bad.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, dear. So how then are we going to rate... how then are we going to rate Starcrash?
Wow. Yeah. I have to admit, watching this, instead of just straight up watching this movie, watching it with the commentary of Mystery Science Theater 3000, I highly recommend that. That definitely adds to your enjoyment. Also gives you little breaks in between, because they always have their silly little skits during the movie. But, cheesy special effects, superior acting from Christopher Plummer, very, very cute and young looking David Hasselhoff, stop motion animation that just barely gets the job done. It's so bad, it is entertaining. Out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I'm going to go ahead and give this 2.5 Erics.
Okay. Now, what's a passing grade? So, one thing we should point out too, you can watch this in various different ways. It's readily available if you want to watch it without the commentary. Or of course you can just hop onto Netflix and watch it, that way. So, it's readily available whichever way you want to watch it. I love this. I do not know why, but this movie just spoke to me. Sometimes there are times when I just love a cheesy, bad film, but still is kind of funny enough or interesting enough or silly enough that it holds my attention and I don't get bored. And that's the thing I found about this movie. I never got bored. Like it actually held me. So I can't believe I'm going to do this, Velvet. I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow.
I really,
wow.
I can only judge it on how much fun I had watching it. And I have to admit, I loved every minute of watching this. I never got bored. I could laugh even when I wasn't meant to, but I could still laugh. So I just thought, I've got to give it a 5. I've got to give it a 5.
Right on. Sometimes, it's movies, they can be bad, but they're entertaining as hell, and that's the way it goes sometimes. So that's good. That's good.
So bad it's good.
Excellent.
All right. Well, we're going to come right back because we've got, I think, what most people know what comes next, if you're a fan of the show. So one moment. We'll be right back.
It's time to get excited, short film fans. It's mini movie review time.
It most definitely is. And what little gem have you found for us this week, Velvet?
All right, well, this ought to appeal to my co-host because he loves disaster films.
Well,
and I usually don't. I usually don't. They honestly scare me and stress me out. However, this mini movie really spoke to me, and I thought it was really lovely, and I wanted to share it with my co-host and all of our listeners. So today, our mini movie is called 7 Minutes to Closing, and wow, this is pretty intense stuff. So this is a 2016 short film. So it's a couple years old. It's made the rounds at little mini movie or short film festivals. And what is it about? First off, it's directed by April Beta. I hope I'm saying that correct. And basically, we've got a convenience store. A woman is just there using her price gun, putting the little price tags on some of the items in her store. A man walks in to buy a bottle of alcohol, and he's short some change, and he's getting kind of upset, and he's like, oh, come on, just let me take the alcohol. So at first you think this is going to be like it's going to turn into a robbery or something, but then he's kind of like, oh my gosh, how long have you been in here? He's saying to the convenience store clerk, possibly owner, and you realize that something is going on that she is totally oblivious to, which often happens when you work somewhere and you're indoors all day. You kind of get out and then you start hearing the news, what's been going on. You're like, wow, I missed a lot while I was at work. Well, it turns out that an asteroid is on its way to hit the planet, and we're all going to die in 7 minutes. Definitely puts a different perspective on things, so you think. So what does happen in that last 7 minutes? Well, in this case, we got two people that end up connecting in an interesting way. And no, they do not save the planet. So spoiler alert on this story. And what did you think of this mini movie, Warren?
I liked it, actually. I thought it had some interesting little things to say. It was, it was really well done. It was very interesting. I like the concept too of the characters. It's I feel like I'm being blown away here. It's like hello, Velvet. Can you hear me?
I apologize. There we go. Let me stand over here. See, the asteroid's on the way, Warren. We've only got 6 minutes to get this review done.
I was about to say, was that the asteroid I can hear? But it's
sorry.
No, sorry. I'm only having fun. Sorry, I'm only having fun. But there was I mean, it's very interesting because yes, I mean, I found the characters very interesting. I mean, the we think that the guy who comes into the shop maybe isn't all that nice. It turns out that he's, in fact, the exact opposite. He's a charming, wonderful gentleman. I would use the word gentleman. He is,
right.
He's absolutely quite amazing. The fact that he could have just walked out with the alcohol and not paid. They're only arguing about 14 cents.
Right.
But in the end, he sort of says, I can't do that. It's morally wrong. I can't actually do that, So,
right.
And then, of course, other things will happen in the shop. We will see that, he is quite an amazing gentleman. The other thing, too, is that from our sort of store owner, store worker or whatever, I kind of found the character very interesting because there are so many people that are so immersed in their work. Like, they really don't have anything else. They really don't know what else there is because we have some people who unfortunately have to work like 7 days a week. They really don't get breaks.
Right.
And it sort of struck me a little bit. She was a bit like that. And even though when she suddenly realizes the world's going to end, it's a little bit like, well, I can't do anything about it. I may as well just keep working,
Right.
So because it's all I know. There's nothing else I really know, so I'll just keep working. So it was, very, very interesting. We will see a third character come into this movie as well, which I thought was interesting because I sort of thought it shows, because it was kind of realistic in a way. It shows the insanity of some people in emergencies. You know,
Right, exactly.
You know, where there are some people who are just, shall we just say, they're just fucking awful people, and
they are.
You know, and so it was interesting to see that. I will say one thing too about that. I did like. Now, I don't know if this was done intentionally. It could have just been pure coincidence. But will I just say that we've got two people in a shop. There is kind of the concept of a robbery. The bad person's white, the good person's black. Now,
I didn't even notice that till you said that.
Now,
Yeah,
I don't know if that was intentional. It could have just been coincidence. Do you know what I mean? It may not have had anything whatsoever to do with it. But I just did think if it was intentional, I thought, thumbs up, good on you. Do you know what I mean? For reversing what a lot of people have as a stereotype. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So I would say thumbs up to the people that made it for doing that. However, in saying that, it may have been totally unintentional and they didn't even think about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I honestly don't know because when you mention it that way, yeah, definitely. If that was intentionally written, I agree. Good on you. That was great commentary on the situation. And because when you do first watch the short film, it does. I don't want to say it caters to that stereotype. It elicits that stereotype that this man walks in, you think it's going to turn into a bad situation based on race, because we have two different races going here, two different genders. But then we do have that third character come in, and it turns that on its head. And you're like, no, it's irregardless of race or gender. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. So
that's exactly right.
You're a good person. So they really hit it home with this message. I also agree with you. It's interesting. They did touch on the topic of just that disruption of routine. And so for some people, there is no disruption of routine. Like, they don't know what else to do. They've only got 7 minutes left on Earth. We've never been put in a situation where we go, wow, I only have 7 minutes left. What do I do now? They're just like, nah, I'm just going to keep doing what I would normally be doing because in 7 minutes, it's not going to matter anyway.
Yes.
This movie, I'm sure you would agree, was very reminiscent of Seeking a Friend for the End of the World from 2012 with Steve Carell and Keira Knightley.
Yes.
Which that movie had me so emotionally upset. I remember after we reviewed the movie, Warren was like, I don't think we should do those kind of movies anymore.
No.
It was a tearjerker. It was a very emotional tearjerker, very good movie. But they also touched on that theme in the movie that the world was in a similar situation where the world was coming to an end, and you had that faction of society that just went fucking crazy and was just doing whatever they wanted, totally hedonistic. Then you had that other faction of society that committed suicide. They're like, it's going to end anyways, might as well just do it now. But then you had that remaining faction that did not allow their routine to be disrupted. They still continued to go to work, do their jobs, and it's an amazing concept. And honestly, this is a story that could be told again and again and again because there's so many perspectives that you can touch on. And with this particular short film, 7 minutes to closing, I love that at the last moments of time you have goodwill towards each other. You have people looking out for each other. You have people connecting, creating a friendship, a bond, and it was really, really beautifully done.
Oh, I agree. I mean, these yes, in the last seconds, if you like, of these people's lives, they have created what maybe could be described as the most important connection they've ever had with another human being in their life.
Right.
You know, it's a very interesting little film. I really liked it. I mean, you could sort of say, oh, maybe would have liked to have seen it go into a bit more depth or something like that. But it's a short film. They've only got so much time. You know, so and quite often too, I think short films are often criticised for not going into enough character depth. But you can only do so much with what you've got. And I thought they did an amazing job, actually, of trying to show who these people were with the very limited amount of time that they had. So I think they did an extraordinary job. No, I really think it was a very good little film. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the acting is quite strong. The acting's quite strong in this film, too, which is a very hard combination to pull off because you have two protagonists, one that's talking a lot and one that talks very little, and finding that good balance so it doesn't sound like the character's just talking to himself. He's obviously acting as a narrator for what's happening. He's letting the audience know what is going on by the words he's saying, but he's still trying to talk to this person who's not really openly communicating with him. And then you have the third person come in, and that's just like, oh, goodness gracious, okay. Everybody's flipping out now because there's not much time left. The short film, this isn't really a criticism, but but like in any movie, there's always a timeline, a time frame where we're like, oh, this is happening in 3 days, yet we see 3 days happen in an hour and a half. This short film also takes that creative storytelling liberty of the short film is not 7 minutes long. It is, including credits, a little over 14 minutes.
Yes.
So that they're able to, tell the narrative and get the story out to you. So not really a criticism, just something I noticed.
There's also a couple of scientific inaccuracies. I would say there is a line in this that all asteroids that hit the Earth burn up through the atmosphere. No, it doesn't actually work that way. Meteors, right? Small little pieces of rock. Yes. 99.99999% burn up. Some are just a bit too big, and so they do actually create an impact. They will actually impact. An asteroid is a totally different creature. It is not the same thing. An asteroid is the size of a small moon. It is a very large object, far too large to burn up, through an atmosphere. So, no, asteroids do not burn up when they hit when they hit the atmosphere. So, no, that was actually wrong. Also, the thing about the fact that we didn't see it because it came from the sun. No,
we didn't see it coming.
It doesn't work that way. So no, that was actually wrong. However, in saying that, can an asteroid sneak up on us and we don't see it until literally the last minute? Shit, yes, absolutely.
Oh,
that
God.
has actually that's actually happened in the past. We've actually had asteroids sneak up on us. And obviously they don't, well, clearly they don't hit us. They pass us by billions of miles, but that's still very close. No, but in astronomical terms, that's still very close.
Astronomical terms,
right.
Okay.
But however, in saying that, you wouldn't get 7 minutes warning. You would maybe, even the times where we have had them sneak up on us, we're still talking about 7 months warning or something. We're not, okay, all right. We're not talking about, 7 minutes or something like that. But yes, have they sneaked up on us before? Absolutely. But not 7 minutes. That's just a bit, yeah, if it was 7 minutes away, you'd be able to physically see it, right?
Oh, God, that'd be awful.
That's just not right. However,
that'd be so horrible.
However, you know what I'm like? I always like to put in that little bit of, but it doesn't fault the film. It doesn't fault the film at all. It is a brilliant film, absolutely brilliant film. And I do not expect small filmmakers to get all that little stuff right,
Right.
So, absolutely brilliant little film. I loved it. I also just love the character of our guy who enters the shop, because the whole point is that he's got 7 minutes, left. His intention was to get himself plastered, basically. That's why he wanted the bottle of booze. But in the end, it's almost like he realizes that, well, what would be the point of that? In the last moments of my life, I've got someone here who doesn't really know how to deal with it, what to do, so they're still working. So I'll help them. That's a kind of like, because in a way, what he's doing is he's comforting her. Do you know, in doing that, right? So that's where he could have just gone off and spent the last 7 minutes of his life doing whatever, but instead he chose to spend those 7 minutes making her life a little bit better. And that's a kind of a really beautiful thing, you know? So,
Yeah.
Great little
and also
film.
finding purpose with your life in those last few minutes. Like, okay, what am I going to do? For her, it was work, and for him, it was comforting her. And yeah, it just, wow. And for that other dude that comes in, well, you'll have to watch the short film and find out. We don't want to spoil it all for you. But yeah, it was really beautifully made. I was very touched by this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So it's a thumbs up from me, Velvet.
Oh, definitely thumbs up from me. Okay, so this is our mini movie review of the week. This is called 7 Minutes to Closing. You can follow them on their social media, on Twitter at 7minfilm, but you can also just go to their website, 7 Minutes to Closing, all spelled out, 7minutestoclosing.com, and they have it right there on their site for you to watch this short film. So when you got 15 minutes, you know, grab a snack and a coffee, sit down, and, you know, change your life with a little bit of art. So, nice short film. And if you leave anything on their social media, make sure you tell them that Cult Movie Show sent you.
Most definitely, most definitely. All right, we'll just take a quick musical break, and we will be right back. Well, we are back, and that was, of course, the Pet Shop Boys with Red Letter Day. Yes, as my daughter and I always joke, the Pet Shop Boys, more God than musician. But anyway, that's, that's just a little bit of an in-joke with us. Anyway, our final film for the podcast is we are going to South Korea. And now, is this the second time we've gone to South Korea or the third? I can't remember, Velvet.
Let's see. Train to Busan, and was there another movie?
No, I think this must be the second time.
I think this is the second. Yeah, second time.
We did go to North Korea once, but obviously,
sorry.
Yeah, but a little bit different. So we are talking about the 2003, and I think we can definitely say here, cult movie, Oldboy. And it is a very interesting film. It was very, very it's critically acclaimed, isn't it? Really, this movie.
Even on the IMDb.com, on their list of top-rated films out of 100, this movie is currently rated at number 68. Out of all the thousands and thousands of movies on that website, this one's in the top 100. So that tells you something right there.
Yes, and I've got some thoughts on that, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, it's also part of a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken, I think. This is actually the second installment of a trilogy of movies?
That's what I've heard. I've not seen the other ones.
Yeah.
So it's definitely standalone, but you can obviously enjoy it as a trilogy as well. Yeah.
It's there are a lot of movies which are part of trilogies or whatever, but they're still standalone films. So
right.
So from 2003. Now, it's a really interesting story, and I have to admit, I had a bit of trouble following it at first, but it does start to make sense as the movie progresses. So, our main star of this movie is basically it all starts off where he's late for his daughter's birthday party. And he's pissed out of his mind, okay? For some reason, he's got totally drunk. And anyway, and he gets arrested, and he's in the police station for some sort of, breaking some sort of drunken law or something like that. And he's then released out of the police station after acting like a complete tosser, a complete idiot while he's in the police station. So anyway, his friend comes to collect him, and they then leave. He then goes to a phone booth. Yes, remember those things called phone booths that used to exist? And he makes a telephone call to his daughter, and to sort of say, I'm coming, I'm late, just wait. And of course his wife is there. Oh, you're so late, Anyway, so he's coming. And then his friend takes over the telephone to talk to the wife, to try to explain that, yes, they're late, but they're on their way. And suddenly our main star vanishes. He just disappears. And the next thing we see, he's being placed into what is a prison. But the prison cell is like a hotel room or a motel room, a one-room apartment with a bathroom, a bed, a television, a window, but it's not a real window, it's a fake window.
Right.
And he finds out that he's to be imprisoned in this room for 15 years. Now, we don't know why at this stage. We absolutely have no idea why. It also then turns out that his wife has been murdered, and his child is off being raised by a Swedish family. Don't quite know how that came about, but anyway, a Swedish family, while he's in prison, and he's the main subject for this crime. but we still don't know why the hell he's in this prison. Anyway, so he's in there for 15 years. He basically goes bonkers. He comes back. He goes bonkers again. You know, he goes nuts several times, tries to kill himself, tries to do all sorts of things. Every time he does anything, they bring him back. It's a very, very weird situation. He's then released from this prison, and he finds himself on a rooftop of a building where he's having a very strange discussion with another gentleman. He will then go off to try to track down his daughter to find out where his daughter is. After he, of course, realizing that she's been raised by a Swedish family, he gives up and believes that there's really no way he can now track down his daughter.
Right.
He will then be handed by strangers phones, wallets, money, everything to get on with his life. Someone is controlling his life, but we don't quite know who. He will then meet up with a young woman, a sushi chef, and anyway, they will start a relationship while he tries to basically go through a hunt of vengeance to try to find out who he thinks has possibly put him into that prison. But he will then meet another gentleman who we realise is very heavily involved in his imprisonment, and he will set him up basically with an option, and that is that you must find out what I'm doing, you must find out why, and whoever finds out first, if you find out within a certain period of time, I will kill myself. If you don't find out the truth in a certain period of time, I will kill you. So he then has to try to find out what is going on with the help of this young woman. Now, I don't want to give the ending away to this because a lot of people may want to see this and they...
I agree. Yeah,
okay.
We'll keep this one mostly spoiler-free because yikes.
Yeah, but shall we just say he is totally being manipulated. His imprisonment has been manipulated, all by a man who seems to have developed some incredible amount of wealth and power. Not quite sure how he does that.
He came from a rich family.
Oh, is that what it's... Okay, okay.
Yeah, he came from... They, very quickly mention it in the movie, and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, but I think we can say, without giving too much away, that he is responsible for creating this prison. He is responsible for everything which is happening.
Yes, but we don't know why.
But we don't know why. And as the story will develop, it goes down, shall we say, a very ugly path to which now our evil man will force our main character to experience something that he went through, which is very taboo, very nasty, and he will force him to experience it without realizing it.
Right.
It's an amazing film. It is very hard to follow. I know I'm not giving it enough away, but I will say this movie is very heavily taboo, and I think you know what I mean when I use the word taboo, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think people will realise. It's. I'm not too sure what else I can really say without giving too much away about this film, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Velvet? Maybe you can do it better than I. I'm not doing a very good job.
No, I think
of
you're doing it
describing
perfectly
this film.
No, you're doing it perfectly. This movie, ultimately, when you break it down, it has 3 twists in the plot that are just like holy shit each time, and the final twist, as I'm calling it, is the very ending of this film, which is the most fucking controversial thing on the planet. When you really break it down, the way this movie ends. I heard about this movie years ago. This movie's from 2003, and people are always like, oh my God, the ending, the ending, the ending, the ending, the ending. And yeah, it's just, you don't see the twist coming. Then the next twist, it's like, oh my God, even worse. And then the ending is like, it's not as in your face, but when you realize what the ending means, you're just like, oh my fucking God. Wow. Okay. So this movie was also remade for an American audience in 2013, and it stars Josh Brolin as well as one of the Olsen twins, Elizabeth Olsen, I believe.
Right.
And they actually stay pretty true to the story that we see in the 2003 Oldboy, but that ending is so controversial that in the American one, we just couldn't do it. We changed the ending. It's the two twists still happen, but that third and final ending twist, they changed it in the American version because we just can't fucking handle that shit. It's intense. Right. And so when I rewatched this movie for our review, I'd honestly forgotten, like, even though I knew everything that was happening, it was actually harder to watch this movie knowing everything. Because when you first watch it the first time, you still have that element of surprise. When you watch it the second time, you know all the secrets and all the twists, and it makes you view everything so differently. Everything's making you cringe. You're really anticipating the worst because you know it's coming and you know what's going to happen. So it was really hard to watch this the second time. I don't want to say this is a watch it once only movie, because it's definitely worth watching more than once because of the cinematography style in this film is really interesting, and the story is amazing. The acting is very strong, lots of quirky characters, but at the same time, it's so heavy, the crazy stuff that happens in this film, that it's just like, you definitely can't watch it back to back. Like, it's been some years
yes.
since I've seen this. And I miraculously even forgot about, like, I remembered all the twists, but there were still some parts of the movie I actually forgot about. And rewatching it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about this part. The movie starts out, you've got Dae-soo, as you said, our main character, Dae-soo. He's just, evidently this dude's a bad drunk, publicly drunken. He's basically been pulled into a police station. They're holding him there till somebody comes to pick him up. And you realize that it's his daughter's birthday, and you're like, oh, what a piece of shit. You're getting, drop dead drunk, get arrested drunk on your, daughter's birthday. But then all of a sudden, like, he gets kidnapped, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And he's stuck in this crazy hotel room, like, every day they drug him by, like, shooting some kind of, gas or fumes into his room that make him pass out. And during that time, that's when they'll, like, clean his room. They'll cut his hair if his hair is getting long. And I think at least twice he tries to commit suicide by, like, breaking glass and cutting his wrists. They'll fix his wrists so he can't die. So it's just like, this poor guy cannot leave this room. They bring him food every day, just shove it under the door. He doesn't know why he's there. He figures out he's been there 15 years. Then all of a sudden, after 15 years, one day, he thinks he's finally going to get out. He's got these metal chopsticks. He's been chipping away at the wall, fucking Shawshank Redemption style. He thinks he's going to dig a hole in the wall and get out that way. But all of a sudden, he wakes up one day and he is outside. He wakes up in a giant suitcase. He's wearing a suit. He's fully clothed. And he's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yes.
But okay, and here's where, like, there's a lot of, like, really dark humor in this movie, but I definitely wouldn't call this movie a black comedy whatsoever. There are humorous moments just because they're strange. So this guy hasn't had any kind of human interaction in 15 years. And there's somebody, he's on a roof. And who's on the roof with him? A man who's getting ready to commit suicide. The first person you've seen in 15 years, and the dude is getting ready to just fall off the roof to kill himself. And you're just like, wow, this poor guy. And so he tells the guy, and he starts bringing up the guy to speed, like, I'm going to tell you my story. And so he's like, I was drunk. It was my daughter's birthday. I've been held captive for 15 years. And so he tells this guy his story. And the guy's like, wow, okay, now I'm going to tell you mine. And the guy just walks away, doesn't even listen to the suicidal dude's story.
I know.
He's just, you're like, dang. And yeah, so I'll take a breath and let you pick up and tell me some thoughts, opinions, questions.
Well, he's still, he's still not a very nice guy. I mean, the fact is that, like, he uses this other guy to get all this stuff off his chest about the last 15 years, right? This guy is clearly emotionally, he was trying to kill himself, And then just as
Right.
that's happened, this other guy is then about to open up his heart and explain. And then, no, he just walks away, and the guy jumps off the roof. He could have saved the guy's life. You know what I mean?
Right.
All he maybe had to do
Right.
was listen to him, and he could have saved his life. So,
Right.
however, this man has just got out of 15 years imprisonment. He's probably not thinking, but it's interesting.
He's out of practice. His social skills are totally out of whack.
Well, as he says, the only thing in my mind, the only thing that drives me at the moment is revenge. Like that is it. Of course, the problem is that he has totally misread the situation. He thinks it's somebody, from his past who has done this to him. Well, it is someone from his past, but it's not someone that he thought was an enemy. Like, it's not something that even dawned on him was an enemy, even though this other person has basically, their whole life has been around creating revenge on our star for an event that happened when they were at school.
Right.
So, so he doesn't even suspect it. And, but it's, the other thing too is that if you want to call it our evil guy, although I'm not too sure who's actually good and who's bad in this, to be truthful, but
And that's the truth. Yeah.
But our evil character, it's a bit like the fact that he gives him this ultimatum. It's about, so we're going to play this game now, and one of us will die. It's sort of interesting because it almost says with the bad guy's character that he knows what he's done is wrong, because otherwise, why is he even giving him the option? And I find all of that a little bit. I mean, it's very interesting, but I find it very difficult to maybe relate to. Like, why is he even giving him the option? He can just get his revenge. Why? Does he actually, in an essence, know that he is bad, and so he wants to get his revenge, but at the same time knows that he has to himself die? I don't know. I'm just quite confused.
The only thing
by
I can
all
say
that.
is the guy's fucking nuts. That's all I can say.
Well, they're
is
all
the guy's
nuts.
just
I
fucking
don't think
crazy.
it's-
Yeah, they're all crazy. Sociopathic assholes. They're all nuts in this movie.
And the ending, as you said, it's because of the concept. Okay, got to be very careful here. Because of this taboo subject, which is really what the original crime was. Going back to when they were at school. Now, the whole idea is that if you're, I'll just say this, if somebody is really a good person, if they know, even unintentionally, they've done something which is morally wrong, all right? Even though they didn't intend to do it, they didn't even know it was happening, right? They didn't even know. They're told later, or they work it out later. Now, if you're then given a choice that you can walk away from that, or you can continue it if somebody alters your mind, your memories, you're going to keep the bad stuff. And do you know what I mean? It's like you're going to make a decision where you're going to say, I'm going to continue what's morally wrong.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
right. It's a
hard
really
for us to discuss this without giving it away. So we might have to take this one off air so we don't spoil it for everybody. But that's why this movie is so fucking controversial. Is exactly that. Is the choice that's ultimately made is like, whoa, shut the fuck up. Are you serious? Yes. This movie goes there, and we're being very cryptic. We apologize, but this is one of those movies we really don't want to spoil it for you, even though this movie is from 2003. It's one of those cult classic films that if you've not seen it, you don't want to spoil it for people. You want them to see it so they can go through all the shocks and just the twists and the turns that we experienced watching this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, go on. Please keep going.
I like that you touched on that, because there is, and they keep mentioning this in the movie, and you don't really know what it means till you get to that first twist, and then you finally realize why they keep saying this. And it's this is paraphrasing. I'm not saying it word for word, but they're basically saying, regardless of whether it's a piece of sand or it's a rock, they're both going to sink to the bottom. And long story short, they're saying, something you may think is no big deal, is not a big thing at all, for another person has this massive life impact. And that's ultimately why this guy has no idea that he's even wronged somebody, ends up being held captive for 15 years as part of this really expansive revenge plot. And he doesn't even know he's wronged the person. And even when the person finally starts breaking it down for him, he's still like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Like, how did I do that? Until they hit that very last point, then you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see where you get that from, but basically he was the catalyst for what happened, is the way one of our many anti-heroes, or not even anti-heroes, excuse me, our antagonist is viewing the situation. He views our main character as the whole catalyst for why this bad thing happened in his life.
Well,
amazing.
In a sense, do you actually think that our if we want to say we've got our good star and our bad star, okay? Mm-hmm. So do you even think, the whole idea is meant to be that we've got the baddie who is seeking revenge, on our main star. But in a sense, that everything that our baddie does, everything he represents, everything that this taboo bad thing that he did, our main star, once they realise what they've done, even though it was unintentional, but once they've realised what they've done, that they make an active choice that they would rather do something very barbaric to themselves so they can't speak, right? So they can continue the situation but just not inform anybody. So in a sense, he is worse than the guy who is actually imprisoning him. Right, he's actually, in a sense, more evil than the guy who is meant to be the evil one. I think that's one of the reasons this is such a cult film, is because our main star, when you really break this movie down, is not a good person at all. At all. No. It's almost that idea that you can have someone who gets away with a crime and gets away with it, so it's a bit like, oh, well, I'll do it again because I didn't get caught, and then I don't get caught a second time, so I'll do it again. Well, hang on, just because you didn't get caught doesn't mean you're not wrong. This idea that I'm innocent because I didn't get caught. No, it doesn't work that way. If you did it, you're still guilty. You just haven't been caught.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to talk about this movie.
Yeah, I know.
Without spoiling it, because I was just like, oh my goodness. So I can talk a little bit about the cinematography. That won't give away too much. I do love the style of this film. It's very much in the big city. Ton of people, lots of anonymity, so there's always all these side plots going on, like in real life. You can just imagine it's easy to get lost in the big city, figuratively, because there's so many people and everybody's got something different going on, and just that adds to the whole sense of, God, this could really be anyone that imprisoned him, so how is he going to figure this out? The cinematography, it's very gritty, very grimy. Everything just looks old and dilapidated and dirty. But then throughout the movie, there's always these pops of color. It really holds my attention. It's a beautiful film to watch, which is not a word I would usually use to describe movies that I also describe as gritty and grimy looking. Yes. But it's very well shot. Great camera perspectives. There's a famous scene where there's a lot of fighting in this movie, a lot of hand-to-hand combat, a lot of fighting, which is kind of unexpected because our main character, he's a drunk. He's a bad alcoholic, evidently, and then he's in captivity for 15 years. And so during this time, he just manages to build up the skill to fight.
Yes.
practices fighting. And I found out that this movie, a lot of people may already know this, but for me this was new. I didn't realize that this movie is actually based on a manga comic book called Oldboy. And I'm like, okay, well, that explains where all the fighting comes in from.
Yes, yeah.
But there's a great scene in the movie where it's all done in one shot, one take, and it sweeps from left to right, and it goes back and forth a little bit. But he's going down a hallway where there's like, I don't know how many people, 20 guys, 30 guys, and he's got to fight them all off. And he manages to get through this entire fight. He gets stabbed in the back once, and the knife's hanging out of his back, and he keeps going, keeps fighting people, keep beating them all up. And he beats up everybody in this hallway, and it's just this amazing one-shot take that goes maybe about 5 minutes, maybe a little longer. And it's just, that's one of the most iconic scenes of this movie. So if you're a cinematography fan, you love those really long, sweeping one-take shots for a scene, you would love to see this. Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
Oh, yes. It's it's very well done. You know, it's very well done. I mean, I would have to actually say that the way this film is shot, the way it progresses, it's very well done. It you know, it's very well done, and it's more. I think the issue with this film to whether you're going to enjoy it or not, it's whether you can cope with the subject matter rather than the movie itself. The movie is actually kind of a very interesting thriller, you know.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
think about that movie with now what was it? I think it was called Seven. Do you remember? You know, about the two police officers. You know, and it is you know, it's a thriller where you've got this cat and mouse game between the two, you know, between the two sides, and this movie is similar in, you know, in that sense, until the big showdown will actually happen. And in fact, it's quite interesting because you remember in that movie Seven, there's that whole idea that this entire thing has been set up to bait the police officer to murder him. Like, his end game, if you remember, his end game in Seven is to be murdered. That's how it's meant to end. The question is, will Brad Pitt actually murder him or won't he? So I see a lot of similarities here.
There's definitely a lot of taunting. God, I just don't want to say too much. There's a lot of psychological taunting of our main protagonist in this film. There's this one theme in the movie. I think it might be a little lost in translation. I want to see what your thoughts on it are. Where basically they're equating loneliness with hallucinating ants. And when I say ants, I do mean the bugs that build little, you know, ant cities, you know, lovely little things that show up at picnics and like to crawl over your food. In this movie, there's this whole bit about basically losing your sanity, being subjected to extreme loneliness, and you hallucinate ants crawling on you, crawling out of your skin, crawling all over your face. They show a scene where a woman is crying and sad in a public transportation by herself, and off in the corner there's a giant ant sitting. And I'm like, I think it's a little lost in translation, perhaps, for me. This movie is from South Korea, so have you heard of this kind of thing? Loneliness and ants? Have you ever seen something like that?
I haven't. I mean, mind you, I've never. I've known some South Koreans. I used to have a very, very dear friend who was South Korean, but I must admit this topic never came up. I must admit. But I wondered whether it's sort of an analogy of the fact that if we're ever going to talk about, let's say, a society, especially as if you look at ants, the way they work, they're a social species. In other words, an ant cannot live by itself. It's biologically impossible. An ant must live within a colony. Okay.
Right.
So if an ant is separated from the colony, it dies. right? Because an ant, like any social species, and when I say a social species, where that doesn't mean things like a dog, right? You know, it's like a dog's a social. No, a social species is like bees, like ants, where they actually work. Each individual works as part of a group, and it's actually almost the group which is the animal rather than the individual. So if an ant is separated, it dies. And I'm wondering whether it's kind of an analogy along those lines that as humans in a society, a bit like ants, the loneliness, if we're separated, we're no longer part of that society, we die.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's a good explanation. That actually makes a lot of sense. So it actually may not actually be a cultural allegory so much more as just the human condition that, you know, people are lonely and we need other people. And here this man's been subjected to one of the loneliest existences you can have, which is basically solitary confinement for 15 years.
Yes.
And
it's a bit like if you take a wolf out of the pack, it can still survive. Right, it will still survive. You take an ant or a bee out of society, it can't. It will die. It's got no purpose left. I just wonder. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm totally guessing. I'm totally guessing, but I just wonder if that is what they're trying to say. Don't know.
No, I think that was a good explanation. There was a little bit of animal cruelty in this film, which is honestly kind of surprising by 2003 movie standards of today. The scene where we have Dae-soo visits a sushi restaurant and he eats a live octopode. He actually ate 4 of them in the course of this filming. And it's actually not uncommon over there to eat live octopodes, and by octopodes I mean tiny octopuses, but they usually slice them up before they eat them, and in this movie he very cruelly just like bites into it and tears it, and it's the suckers are sticking to his face and it's crawling. It's really gross, so just a heads up to people out there that might be sensitive to that. There is a scene where we see him eating a live octopode, poor octopodes. They say whenever this movie began winning awards and what have you, the director actually made a speech, and as part of that speech, he actually thanked all the octopodes that gave their lives for the making of his movie. So he at least gave them recognition for their sacrifice for his art. But all joking aside, there is some funny stuff in this movie. Our main guy, Dae-soo, while he's at the sushi restaurant, at one point he passes out and he gets very sick. And a stranger takes him to her apartment, and she gives him medicine. And we find out that she's been sliding anal suppositories up his ass while he was passed out. I just think that's so bizarre. She goes, well, how else was I supposed to give you medicine while you were passed out? And so it's just a strange scene. And he, at one point, tries to force himself on her, like almost tries to rape her while she's sitting on the toilet. And I'm like, first off, she's using the bathroom. It's like, stuff is coming out. That is not the time to make your move. But it's, I don't know, maybe again a little bit of culture clash, because she's the one that kind of ends up apologizing to him, even though he's the one that barged in on her while she was taking a piss and tries to, rape her, basically. It's a very strange scene.
I don't know. I don't actually know if it's cultural so much. I think it's actually meant to be more that he, he's been out of circulation in solitary confinement for 15 years.
Right.
I think his concept of how he relates to people is not good.
Right.
And out of place.
His social cues are totally off. Like, he thinks her going to the restroom is an invitation for him to follow, and it's like, no, it's an invitation for you to stay out while she takes a piss.
Yeah, but, I don't think there's anything cultural in that. I think that's just,
There is, I'm looking at my notes now, and I'm realizing there's stuff that I wrote down I can't even talk about because it would be so much of a spoiler for this movie, so I'm going to have to skip over those, but I will jump to this part without giving it away too much. We do find out throughout the movie that Dae-soo was ridiculously heavily 24/7 surveilled to the point that, like, they know his every move in this movie, and it's just like, wow, okay, why are they watching his every move? What is going on? You have to watch the movie to find out.
It must be said, it is one of the most elaborate revenge plots I've ever seen in a movie.
Yes.
I can't think of another movie where the concept of someone's revenge would go to these limits and this expense. Like, I really... Can you think of one that would go this far?
Not at all. This is very cartoon villainy, you know? So, I mean, again, I think that's where it gets its manga roots from, which makes a lot of sense in the overall complexity of this film. There's a lot of traumatic shit in this movie, and watching this movie a second time, I was cringing through so much of this movie. I don't want to say what parts I was cringing through because that might spoil it for anybody who wants to watch this movie, but yeah, if you watch this movie and you like it and you watch it again later, it is so hard to watch. And I don't mean it's hard to watch as in it's not enjoyable, but I mean, like, if it got you the first time, the second time, it really gets your emotions and that tension going even more, because now you're just like, oh my God, like, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
I know what's coming. And that ending is... Woo! I'm going to talk to you about the ending off air so we don't spoil it for you, because I got to hear your thoughts on that, because it's just yikes. It's just fucking crazy when you get past the first two twists and then you get to the end of the movie and you're like, whoa. And I'll also tell you how the American ending is different from the original Korean ending, but I won't say it on air because we don't want to spoil it for our listeners. But yeah,
it's I mean, I think we've done this review on this movie a little bit different to we normally do, because in a sense, this movie is one of those ones that I don't really want to make fun of, because it's like, it's one that you would sort of say, no, this movie does stand out, and you should watch it. So in that sense, no, I don't want to give it away, or we don't want to give it away. The only thing, though, I would have to say to people is that it's still not going to be everybody's type of movie. I will say that if you can remember, we mentioned it before, the movie Seven. If you enjoyed the movie Seven, I think you will enjoy this. If you found Seven disturbing, if you really had trouble sitting through that movie, then do not even attempt to watch this, because you will not enjoy the subject matter. Not in saying that you can enjoy this movie and still be shocked and horrified by the subject matter. I'm not saying that anyone is going to. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to.
I hope nobody watches this movie and goes, "What's the big deal?"
Well, I would say if anyone watched this movie and said, "What's the big deal?" you'd have to say, holy yikes.
Yeah, exactly. Yikes. I'm trying to remember what movie. I don't think we're ever going to review this movie because it's too extreme, but a Serbian film, which is basically it's about snuff films, is very, very much summarizing it. But I remember years ago, when that movie first came out and it was making the rounds, and people were like, oh my God, have you seen a Serbian film? Have you seen a Serbian film? And that's what it's called. And I remember this one woman told me that she was on a date with a guy and they watched it.
Oh, God.
And the guy said, oh, that was an interesting film. And she said she stopped dating him right after that.
It reminds me, I had a friend who... it was after they'd left school, right, and they decided they were going to have a get together and go to the cinema. So a whole heap of them would get together and they'd go and have lunch and go and see a movie, or they'd go have dinner and go and see a movie or whatever, right? And she was responsible for picking the movie. So all get together, let's go and watch a light-hearted film and have dinner and talk. It'll be great fun. What movie did she book them all in for? Schindler's List.
Oh my God! Oh, how depressing!
It's like,
great movie, but that's another heavy movie. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, really? That was the movie you chose? I mean, like you said, fantastic movie, but for a get-together movie, really?
No.
That's
a downer. that is going to depress everybody. It's a great way to preserve history and educate people about that subject matter. But yeah, definitely not for a get-together.
No, not at all. Brilliant. As you
She's
said,
not allowed to pick any more movies. They're like, no, from now on, we pick the movies. You're allowed to come, but you can't pick them.
as you said, fantastic movie. I mean, brilliant movie. But jeepers creepers, you know. It's like that great episode of Seinfeld where Jerry gets caught by one of his relatives making out in the back row of the cinema while watching Schindler's List.
Oh, my God.
And of course, Jerry Seinfeld, of course, is a Jewish family, so of course, and the whole family goes into uproar. It's like, Jerry, please don't tell me this is true, you know.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so when it comes to Oldboy, definitely watch it. But watch it by yourself, to be honest. This is one of those movies I say watch it by yourself. Don't invite friends over. Don't watch it with family members, even best friends. I mean, seriously, watch it by yourself. And then after you've seen it, if you want to share it, you'll know who can handle it and who cannot.
Yes, and I would definitely say do not watch it with a family or close family member. Simply because even if they are very, very forward thinking and all the rest of it, very uncomfortable, you know. Don't. There's
this one movie I need to watch, but it's one of those. It's a movie that showed up on lists that they literally say, "Do not watch this movie with your parents."
Yes.
I keep forgetting the name of it, but Matthew McConaughey's in it, and I guess he plays a hitman. Somebody out there is going to be, "Oh yeah, I know that movie." But there's a scene where him and Gina Gershon, he basically sexually assaults her, but the way he does it is he forces her down on her knees, and he has a chicken drumstick, and he forces her to fillet the chicken drumstick in graphic fashion. And everybody's like, do not watch this movie with your parents. Like, oh, God, no. No, definitely not.
Oh, God.
I don't know if I can. I know. They're like, you'll never think about chicken the same way again.
Oh, yeah, but Matthew McConaughey, one of the great overactors of the world.
Oh, big time.
Studied at the Warren Beatty School of Acting, I think was McConaughey.
I don't think I've seen him in any movie where he doesn't have a Southern accent. He can't drop his Southern accent at all.
I'll tell you, I've got a personal opinion about him, and that is that he can't act. That's why he's a shit actor. It's not, you know. It's like there are certain. I'll put it this way: there are certain people who can change their character, their accents, you know, all this different thing, right? Some of them choose not to. A classic example is Michael Caine, all right? Now, Michael Caine has made several movies in his early days where he put on different accents. He's played Americans, he's played Irishmen, he's played upper-class English gentry, right? But once he became famous, he realised he didn't have to. And the reason why he doesn't, but there's a good reason. He says he doesn't do it because he says to the poor people of the world, right, or people who are oppressed or live in poverty or need to try to socially climb out of where they are, his message to them is, listen to me. If I can do it, you can do it. So it's actually a social and political message that he gives. However, that's not McConaughey. That's not what he's doing. He's doing it because he can't fucking act. Right?
You know, and he falls into that special category of he's so good looking he doesn't have to be a good actor.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's few of them out there.
He's a sex symbol.
You know? Yeah.
He's a sex symbol. Yeah. That's the way it goes.
Well, it's like James Dean. All right. Now, I know you don't always need to get yourself into trouble. James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, right? Anyway, I'm sorry they couldn't fucking act to save their lives. I do not know what was so special about them. I really don't.
You got to die young. That's the way it works.
You've got to be attractive and die young. I mean, it's
be like attractive and die young.
You know, but was Sid Vicious a great musician? I don't think so. No. Right, but he's still seen as this fucking great icon. I mean,
he was a symbol of the punk movement.
What, gobbing and spitting in people's faces? I don't really know what's...
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Exactly. I know. The punk movement was about more than that. You know, it was about aspirations. It was about, you know, it was about more than that. But
All right, we're going off on a tangent
Way off,
as we do,
way off, way
because
off,
we're good
yeah.
friends and we love to talk about shit. But
I know. Back to the movie.
Okay, so
Oldboy.
Oldboy 2003. This movie is in Korean language. If you don't speak Korean, you will have to watch it subtitled. So you really got to pay attention. There is an American version. I highly recommend you definitely check out the original Korean version from 2003. Then you can watch the American version if you want to compare notes. But definitely the Korean version is the original. It is the superior version, and it also has the original ending intact, which honestly is such a controversial ending. The American version couldn't handle it and did change the ending. So again, if you want to see this movie, see the Korean version, see the original one, really get the full impact of this story.
Yes.
Anything else you want to say about it, Warren?
No. I think we've summed it up about as well as we can without giving away too much of the end of the film. So no, but it's the best way I can describe this movie is interesting. It's interesting. There's gonna be really interesting. Actually, is it good? Is it bad? It's a brilliantly made film, but the subject matter is so kind of hard to deal with. Yeah.
It's rough.
And don't remember too, when I keep talking about subject matter, I have to keep reminding people the word taboo. I'm not talking about the violence. I'm not talking about anything like that. We're used to that. We sit down and watch entire cities get engulfed by asteroids, and we don't think twice about it. We see people disemboweled, basically on HBO specials. We don't care about the violence. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this other subject, which is still socially an absolute, and for good reason too.
For good reason. I don't want to spoil it. I don't even want to say anything else about it because I don't want to spoil it because some people are smart. We'll figure it out. And I don't want them to figure it out. I want them to see it. But I agree. This movie, it's going to surprise you. That's also why this movie is such a cult film, because it does broach this subject that you don't see broached in a lot of subjects because nobody wants to talk about it. It's really uncomfortable. It's traumatic. And also, the story is just really original. Just the lengths that this one person goes to get revenge on somebody who has no idea that he's even wronged somebody to that degree. Just the overall story is so original. You can't really guess what's going to happen. And that's why it's so high on the IMDb top rated films list, just because it's such an original story. Because so many movies you watch halfway through, you already know how it's going to end. You already know what people are going to say. They're very cookie cutter, same storylines rehashed over and over and over and over again. And this movie just has a really crazy storyline that you just can't predict.
Oh yeah, and I think the whole point that if you're going to take an Asian, or we'll say Asian, Japanese or a South Korean movie or something like that, and you're going to, or maybe even like a Mexican movie or German movie, French, Italian movie, and if you're going to take that, and the person in America who remakes it is Quentin Tarantino, it's going to tell you something about what this movie is, isn't it? I mean, that kind of gives you a bit of a hint, I think. So
there you go. Who did? I believe Spike Lee directed the American remake. Let me double check.
I thought it was Quentin Tarantino. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry if I got that wrong.
I believe it was actually. Let me double check.
Well,
I believe
my
it was
apologies.
actually. Yeah, it was Spike Lee. There
it was
go.
Spike Lee. Okay, sorry.
But even for him to direct that movie, like even he couldn't handle the ending, and he doesn't always have the most, his movies don't always have the happiest endings either, and even he couldn't handle, or to be honest, they probably jumped in at the last minute and said, "No, motherfucker, this is not how you're going to make that movie."
Yes.
I could see him actually going with the original ending, but I have a feeling probably the money people stepped in and said, now we need to change that ending.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I mean, this movie doesn't play by the rules, or else it wouldn't be the cult film that it is. I mean,
yes, no, that is very true.
Yeah.
I know why I've confused Quentin Tarantino with Spike Lee. Quentin Tarantino was on the jury at the Cannes Film Festival in 2004 when this movie actually won the Grand Prix. So that's where I've got that confusion from. So my apologies on that.
No problem.
Well, I think we did mention that it did actually win the Grand Prix.
You did now? Yeah. Wow, I didn't realize that actually.
In 2004. So that's an honor, within itself. So
definitely crazy. So I don't think there's much we can say about this movie without spoiling it now. So I'm ready to rate it if you are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Who's going first?
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and go. I think I've suggested this film. I really like this movie, but I was surprised that upon reviewing. Wow, it's wow. It's intense. Even though I knew everything that was going to happen, it was still really intense. Even more intense because I did know what was going to happen, which just made me wow. So out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 4.5 because wow, it's out there.
That's interesting. I'm going to rate it 4.5 as well.
Nice.
It's not it's not perfect, but it's pretty bloody close. But in saying that, though, I know there are going to be. I mean, if your idea of the perfect movie is Fast and Furious 7, then this is obviously not going to be for you. If you're a big fan, if you like going to independent, cinema, watching independent films at small cinemas, you've probably already seen this then if that's the case. But if you're the sort of person who is starting to get into that type of, independent cinema, foreign cinema, things that are a bit different, things that aren't simply Dwayne Johnson running around kicking ass, movies that are actually, holy crap, you've really got to think about what the hell is going on, then this really is possibly a movie for you. But yes, if you want that, basically built to a set storyline, Hollywood blockbuster release, then no, this is not going to be for you. So, great film.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely check it out. Everybody who enjoys cult movies, any movie that doesn't follow the standard Hollywood plot line, you'll definitely want to check this out. I can't guarantee you're going to like it because the subject matter might really disturb some people. There is some traumatic shit in this movie, but I still really like this movie. Yeah. But I think I'm good for another 10 years because.
I'm not going to give it a second viewing tomorrow. I can tell you that right now. But in saying that, there's a lot of very artistic films which I, am a big fan of, or I, would recommend people watch. But honestly, watching it every 20 years is enough.
This is well shot, amazing story, really unpredictable, but just the emotional and mental impact of this movie, for me, once maybe every decade's enough.
Yes, I know. All right, then. Well, we should probably wrap it up. So this was podcast 66. Woohoo! Woohoo! And so thanks for listening. Anything we need to say or shout out, Velvet?
All right, just our usual. Feel free to tweet us on Twitter at Cult Movie Show. We also post the link to our mini movie of the week, so you can check that out. In case you want to go watch it, just follow us on social media. We always post our mini movie review of the week. Download us on all places where you listen to podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes Podcasts, make sure you go ahead and leave us 5 stars. I know it's a pain to log in and leave a review, but you can just, you don't have to leave a long review. Just say the name of your favorite cult film or favorite movie, and that's enough. Just leave us 5 stars because that helps us out. And feel free to email us, cultmovieshow@gmail.com. If you have a mini movie, short film, independent film, if you'd be interested in coming on the show and reviewing a film with us, you go ahead and hit us up. We're very friendly. Might take us a while to get back to you, but we will respond eventually.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. Take it home, Warren.
I think that's about it. So we will be back next week, and I'm really hoping if things go to plan, it's going to be an awesome show, because I'm really hoping that a certain person is going to be joining us.
Nice.
Fingers crossed that it all works. Not 100% sure yet, so I'm not going to say the name. But
right.
Anyway, fingers crossed. So we'll be back next week with some more films. And as always, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Cheers, guys.
That's it. All right. Until the next time, everybody. Bye-bye.